Before we start, I thought I would explain just what we're trying to do here. So the first thing is the battery for the battery location is, let's just mark this in here, is in this area here. So as you probably know, it's in the footwell of the boot. There's a lowered plastic box actually in the boot. Now the interesting thing is that then you have two cables that come from the boot going forward towards the engine. The first one, let's see if I can do this. Excuse my rudimentary use of PowerPoint here, but the first cable goes like this, and then it comes forward, and it comes up, it goes under the floor. Sorry, I should explain. It goes under the floor. It comes from here, it goes through a bolt thing on the plastic box, and then it goes all the way under the floor. It's a very thick cable. You can't see it if you've got the undercloaking panels on. And then it comes up in this area here of the engine bay. Oh, and by the way, this is a right-hand drive car, just in case your concern is a left-hand drive car. And then there's like a mounting point on a sort of bulkhead next to the brake servo. And then there's a separate cable bolted onto that mounting point that goes across the engine bay in a piece of plastic. And then it goes down into the engine and goes onto the solenoid. Actually, it bolts onto the back of the alternator and then onto the solenoid, I think. So you have this route for one of the cables. The second route is similar, but not quite the same. So it too goes onto the battery. So the connections onto the battery are slightly different. This first one is not fused, so it comes directly, effectively it comes directly off of the positive terminal of the battery. The second one is fused. It's got some really hefty fuses in it that are built into the plastic assembly that goes on top of the battery, and that comes above the floor, so it's in the floor well, or runs within the passenger compartment along the right hand edge of the car. Again, this is a right hand drive car, so it may be different. Then it comes up in the corner, and then it goes across, and this isn't very 3D, is it? It goes across and under the dash, and then it goes into the fuse box. So the fuse box is about here, let's say, under the behind the glove compartment, and this cable goes into the fuse box. Now what I'm going to do is replace it all with just the battery will be relocated behind the passenger seat, so to this area here, so the battery will go somewhere around here. Then I'll run a single cable forward from there to underneath the dash, and then I'll run two small spur cables. One will go to there, to the fuse box, and the other one will go onto the alternator and starter motor. And we'll do away with all of these other cables. So this is what it will look like when it's finished. So I just thought I'd set the scene for you before we continue with the video. The first thing I did was cut the cable that goes all the way to the back. I used a Dremel disc cutter. It does give quite a clean finish, but I'm going to have to just tidy it up a bit. They're probably not this end, but the other end, which I'll show you in a second, because if I'm going to pull it through the other cabling, I don't want it slicing through other bits of cable, so I need to make sure this is quite smooth and doesn't tear at the cables.
I've had a lot of trouble getting this to focus, so I'm sorry if this is slightly blurry, but you can see here where I've cut the wire as it goes through the back of the dash. You can see I've used a bit of yogurt pot to protect the wires in case I slipped with the Dremel. It's just enough just to stop you nicking the wires. So it's the bottom one that's going to go back through under the dash.
That's got that removed from this side, so I've pulled the cable right through, so you can see the red cable's completely gone now. I've just got to see if I can pull it through under the dash here, and so that it comes out on the passenger side of the cockpit, if you like. There's the cable right through, so now in the passenger footwell, that'll be plenty of length of cable there to put it into a junction box. So the next thing I need to do is, I was talking to Rob at 4040 this morning, and what he told me was the best way to route the cable, this cable that goes down onto the starter motor, is underneath the ECU box. There's a big grommet where a load of cables go through, and he said there's a couple of blanked off sort of routes through. He said snip off the ends of the blanked off ones and then push the cable through. But it does mean I've got to have the ECU box out, which is a bit nervy because obviously I've got to disconnect an awful lot of things. So he said just make sure you take lots of photographs so you know exactly where everything goes. Now I have had the ECU out because I had to send it to End Award for remapping, but there are other connections. As you can see, there are a lot of relays and whatnot. I may just be able to unclip those and lift it all out of the way. Rob said once you've got the cables off, it's really easy to get the box out. I can see one of the screws that holds it in at the back, so that is going to be my next job. It's quite this whole thing's quite unnerving because basically I had a working car and now I'm dismantling it again, which is sort of slightly worrying, but hopefully it'll all work afterwards. I took very careful note of all the disconnected wires, so you can see I've got a whole bundle of wires here. As you can see, I've taken the ECU out. Now it turns out that you can actually get this out as well, this whole piece here. Let's put that to one side, and now you can see there's pretty easy access. They're the 4 bolts that hold the whole of this box in. I don't think it's being held in any other place, so I'll just undo those, and that should give us easy access to the bulkhead. That was quite a struggle to get that out, so just to give you an idea, you've got to get the back edge out first, and then you do have to distort the front of the box in a bit to get the front edge out past this sort of this lip piece here. But once you do that, then it will jam, because this will jam against the back here, and at that point what you have to do is rotate it anti-clockwise and try and just drag it up sideways out of the hole. That's how I did it anyway. Okay, really big thanks to Rob at 4040 here for telling me what to do about this battery cable. So you bring it up through here so it goes under all the trunking that goes into the ECU. There's this rubber bung thing here. I took it out and then drilled a hole through it. You bring it through that, and you take it down there, and it goes through the rubber grommet in the bulkhead there. And I'll show you where it comes out. And it comes out just behind the fuse box. So hopefully you can see that. You can see the edge of the rubber bung just there, just above that nut, and then here's the cable coming down into the footwell. So what I'll do is I'll put a junction box somewhere around this area here with these 2 cables going into it, and then the cable going backwards towards the battery. Wow, thank goodness for that.
While I had Rob on the phone, I also asked him about the pull, the external extinguisher pull, and the routing of the cable for that. So the pull is going to go up here, and what you do is you take it through. Can you see? I don't know if you can see this. There's a yellow bung thing down here. Let me see if I can clean it so you can see the yellow. Can you see that yellow just there? Not very clear. Apparently that's just a block, a sort of blanking thing where if you had a left-hand drive car, that's where the steering column would come through. So what you do is you drill a hole through that, and you can push the extinguisher pull through there. And as Rob said, it brings you out on the transmission tunnel, which is good because that will take me obviously all the way to the back of the car where the extinguisher is located. Something to be aware of is that this cable, you can't take it diagonally across from the bung diagonally to the grommet in the bulkhead, because there's a raised bit on the back of the ECU box. So you can see that I've had to sort of loop it over the top of that. So just be aware of that, because I wouldn't want you to crack the ECU box, obviously, if you just tried to tighten down on the against the cable.